Hello guys, welcome back to Simple Blissful Living. Today I'm bringing you a recipe for vegan Rasmalai. I am so excited to share this recipe with you guys. I've been playing around to get the texture and the consistency right of Rasmalai. Since I'm dairy free right now, removing dairy from Rasmalai pretty much makes it vegan. And as you know, if you know Rasmalai, the entire dish is pretty much dairy. So I had to play around and get ricotta cheese at home right with almond milk and get the sauce right so it's thick. And I wanted to stick to the same flavor profile to create something that was very similar to the traditional dish. I was very surprised when I tasted this. It's so good, so creamy, so delicate, very decadent, and you will absolutely love it. I'm really proud of this recipe and I really hope that you give this a try. If you're vegan or dairy free, this is like a great recipe. It is a little bit of work, but it's so worth it. So we're going to start off with the ricotta cheese. And this is almond milk ricotta cheese that I made at home by blending up some nuts and you want to use almonds only, not cashews. The initial recipe that I tried, I used cashews, but cashews do not curdle. It's just like making nut milk, so you initially make the nut milk and then you strain it. I'll have the recipe for the ricotta cheese and the nut milk on my website, and I'll have a link to that down below. But the ricotta cheese, I didn't film the process because I wasn't sure if it was going to turn out right, but I was really surprised at how great it turned out. And I will link a video that I followed to make this ricotta cheese. I'll link that down below in the description because I want to give her the credit. So to make the Rasmalai, we're going to start off with the ricotta cheese that we made. This is about 2 cups of ricotta cheese. We're going to use some corn flour. So this is how traditionally Rasmalai is made. You curdle the milk and you get, the china or the cottage cheese or ricotta cheese out of the milk. So I'm just using a plant-based milk here and I'm going to follow the same process. You're going to need some sugar and some water for the sugar syrup, and then some whole cardamom pods as well. And then for the rubbery or the creamy mixture that the cheese balls sit in, you're gonna need nut milk of your choice. I use the homemade cashew and almond nut milk, and then you're gonna need some sugar. And to spice this up, you're gonna add some cardamom powder, some saffron. Saffron is a must in this because the traditional Rasmalai has saffron in it. And then you're gonna use some nuts of your choice to garnish it. So we're going to start off by working the corn flour into the ricotta cheese. So I used about 2 teaspoons. You can use about 2 to 3 teaspoons. It will definitely depend on how wet your ricotta cheese is. This ricotta cheese is really smooth, as you'll see, and it comes together really nice. It is sticky, just like the cottage cheese, the chena you get when you make Rasmalai from regular milk. So the consistency is just right. You want to work it into the dough. This is going to help it hold its shape when you go and put this in the sugar syrup. So this step is quite important. It's not to make it any softer or anything like that. It's just to make sure that it holds its shape in the sugar syrup. If the dough gets a little hard to work with, you can use a rubber spatula to bring it together and scrape your plate, whichever platter you're using. And then to make the cheese balls, I find it really helpful to, number one, you can refrigerate this mixture for 10 minutes before you make the cheese balls. And 2, use a cookie scoop. I'm using, I think this is a 1 tablespoon or maybe a 2 tablespoon and a half, which a small cookie scoop works really well. You don't, they all turn out the same size, and they're not as sticky. Once you have it portioned out, go ahead and roll these into balls and then flatten them out as discs. If you want to keep them as balls for rasgulla shape, you can, but traditionally Rasmalais are made into discs and they're flat discs. As you can see here, this mixture is quite smooth, but as you keep working with it, it starts to feel, once it starts sticking to your fingers or your palm, it gets a little bit more difficult to roll these out. So when this starts happening, go ahead and wash your hands and then come back to this. If you still find it difficult, refrigerate the mix for 5 minutes and then come back. It's a lot easier to work with when it's cold and your hands are clean. Then we're gonna move on to the sugar syrup. So I went ahead and added the sugar and the water and the cardamom pods. You don't have to put cardamom pods, but it does infuse the cheese balls with some extra flavor. And you want to bring this to a boil and then gently add in all the cheese balls or the discs. Once you add the discs in, you want to lower the heat to medium and then let this get cooked, covered for about 10 minutes. I opened up the pot to show you guys what it looks like, so you don't want to mess with this too much because it'll start breaking up. But you will see that some of the chunks start breaking off, and this is because I rushed in to roll some of the discs and I didn't roll them out smooth. So you want to make sure they're very smooth when you're rolling them out. Nonetheless, it was only a few pieces of the ricotta cheese and all of them turned out pretty okay. Now, once they're done, you're gonna go ahead and transfer this into a bowl, or you can leave it in the pot and just kind of let it cool down. The reason my syrup looks so brown is because I used raw sugar and it has a brown texture, which is why it looks a little brown. Next, we're gonna move on to the decadent sauce that this sits in. So I'm using homemade nut milk here. I'm using a combination of cashew and almond nut milk, and I think that helped thicken this up quickly. If you're using store-bought, you may want to either boil this longer or add a teaspoon of corn flour with dissolve in cold water, and it'll help thicken it up after you've boiled it for 5 to 10 minutes. You're also gonna add the sugar and the spices and the almonds, and you're gonna bring this whole thing to a boil. And depending on the nut milk, the brand, the amount of preservatives, if it's homemade or not, it might take anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, or you may need to add the corn flour to let it thicken up. I highly recommend you making the nut milk at home if you're making the ricotta cheese at home, because you can buy ricotta cheese, plant-based ricotta cheese at the store here now, but if you're making it at home, might as well just make the nut milk too, because it thickens up really nicely and it's really smooth and decadent. Next, you're going to drain the cheese balls out of the sugar syrup and into the bowl that you're gonna refrigerate this in, and then you want to pour the sauce over and then let this cool down completely and then refrigerate it either 8 to 10 hours or overnight. And I'm showing you the consistency. This was after 6 hours, but it is best if you refrigerate this overnight. And here you'll see what the thickness looks like. It is so creamy and so smooth, and the most surprising part was the cheese balls. They're really smooth and really tasty. You want to make sure you rinse out your ricotta cheese when you're making it, because the lemon flavor might still be in there, so rinse it out a couple of times to make sure that the lemon flavor is in there. And you'll see that this tastes just absolutely amazing. I was so surprised and so happy that I was able to enjoy this. I have it sitting in my refrigerator right now, but I really wanted to share this with you guys. If you guys are vegan or avoiding dairy, please give this recipe a try. You will be pleasantly surprised. And if you do, please share your results with me on my social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Until next time, you guys, I will see you guys very soon, and take care. Happy cooking.